before the full-scale invasion, he was a truck driver who was bringing big trucks around the whole Europe and basically the whole world, bringing goods from Ukraine and elsewhere. So nobody had to locate anyone because the family was in Lviv and I was abroad at the time. I was working, and so I came back home immediately, took the part in the defense.
Коли почалося повномасштабне вторгнення 20
So when the full-scale invasion began in February 2022, I was in Spain, bringing the cargo on a truck.
Я їхав по Іспанії, працював свою роботу, перевозив вантаж. І завжди
So I was listening to Ukrainian radio on the internet.
Радіо через інтернет.
So I was in Spain when the whole thing started. And it was early in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. And I realized that this whole thing started. And I called my manager, who's managing the drivers around Europe, and told him, Vitya, which is for Victor, a name, diminutive for Victor. Vitya, the war has started. And his manager, who's in Ukraine, tells him, what are you talking about? So he knew it before those guys.
Я кажу, включи телевізор, подивися і
Turn on the TV, it's there. So I told him, look, I'm going back, so do all the papers so that the car will be left in the garage, which is in Poland. And so I did my job in Spain, we did everything we should, and then I came back to Warsaw, to Poland, and left the car there, asked them to pay me for my trip, and I came back home.
Коли повертався додому, я був один.
So when I was crossing the Ukrainian border and the border
Коли
guards,
приїхав до нашого
gave him his
паспортного
passport.
контролю, він
And,
дав паспорт, дівчатка ж бачила.
they looked him in the eye and said, thank you for coming back
Мені
home.
так стало приємно, я їй дав паспорт, а вона каже, дякую, що ви повернулися додому.
That was Easter time. It was early spring and it was Easter time. And he thought he would go directly to the military conscription office. But then he thought, okay, I'll spend a week with my family because this is Easter. But in fact, he didn't spend this week at home as he planned, because he went to this cargo company that was doing some voluntarily supporting Ukrainian forces. And so he was, helping them to bring the goods from the trucks to the depots where say it was being stored. And so he only spent the holiday with family.
Сформували батальйон.
Easter holiday, he was at the conscription office. He was never in the military before. He just arrived there, as a fresh mint coin. And so they formed the battalion, and they were moved to the front line to defend the country. And his wife told him that you don't have to come back. A few years ago you got a heart attack, you got some serious heart problems, your eyesight is not perfect, you never held a rifle in your hands before, you're not fit for the service. So I was absolutely against his even coming back to Ukraine. So, but still, there he is.
Все-таки він прийняв тверде рішення, що він повертається. І все-таки я пропонувала...
Well, he already decided. What could you do, to try to scold him? It, wouldn't help. So he already made the decision, so I said okay. But before that, I told him, look, you can do all kinds of jobs to help the front line. You could bring in the goods, and you could do something else. You could help some organizations that are helping the front lines, but not becoming a military, not becoming a soldier. But he already made his decision. He made up his mind, so there was no other way around it.
Чоловіка і допомагати чи сварити, а сенс же. Тобто тепер лишень разом і лишень підтримка.
I cannot really explain this feeling, but I had a bad premonition. I had some bad feeling about it, but I cannot explain it. He just called me the other evening, and everything was fine. And I knew that next day he's going to work, but he was not absent for a few days. There was no, he was there. just the other evening, the other night. And the next day it happened. But this whole time I had this bad premonition which I cannot explain.
Але 3-5. Це був звичайний день. Це було 6 року.
It was just the other day. It was September the 6th.
Тривожні.
Діти були в школі.
Мала пішла перший на... Це було 6 року.
Kids were at school, and the younger daughter started her preparation for the school. That was her first day preparation for the school. And it was just another day. I took the kid back home, and we were preparing something, and then my daughter was at the kitchen, and she started crying. My legs, my feet hurt. They hurt so much. She was crying wildly. She was just sobbing, with tears like running from her eyes, and she was in pain. But we thought that she fell and hit herself somehow. But she was crying wildly. She was just sobbing, with tears like running from her eyes, and she was in pain. But we thought that she fell and hit herself somehow. But so she never felt. There was nothing. She was not injured. She was not hurt. But later we realized that this was exactly the timing when Petro, the husband and the father, was hurt, was wounded. It was about 17:30 p.m. So I was dialing all the numbers I knew in his regiment. And, it's war, so sometimes the soldier calls from some other number, so a number of his friend, his comrade, his brother-in-arms. And she was dialing all the numbers that were somehow associated with her husband, somehow potentially connected. And one of the soldiers was the one who was one of the numbers was one of the soldiers with whom he served. I was reluctant at first to say anything at all. But then he said, I just check one thing, so whether I got her right or. Тож спочатку він не хотів говорити взагалі нічого, а потім все-таки ви вивели його на те, що. So at first he was reluctant to share any information, and then finally she kind of made him answer. During this conversation, and he said clearly that Petro was wounded and that he lost both of his legs, and that he is evacuated.
Де реабілітацію проходив чи лікували? Після
поранення
поранення
зразу, тоді перше
березного ват.
So it was
Де
one
реабілітацію
small
проходив
town
чи
somewhere
лікували?
nearby. That was
Після
that
поранення
was
зразу,
Odessa, which are both the
Березного
seaports
вати,
of Ukraine,
Миколаїв,
and then it was Lviv,
Одеса.
his hometown. I wake up, there's my wife. He
Біля мене.
grabs me and says, "Hey." It's like we would say,
Вибач за це питання.
I don't know how we would say it. Swahili, some, something like, "Hey, my kitten, my rabbit, hey, my little rabbit, you got."
Вона каже, ми є в Одесі. Я
We're
кажу,
in Odessa.
а ти знаєш, що в Одесі є протезний завод? Метни, скупи мені ноги, я пішов, там хлопці мене чекають.
And he says, "Look," she says, "We're in Odessa," and Pavlo says, "Look, you know that there is a factory in Odessa for producing prosthetic legs. Go grab me a couple because my boys are waiting for me."
Саме важче втрачати своїх побратимів.
The hardest thing is to lose your brothers in arms.
Саме легке? Навіть не знаю. До хлопців,
The easiest part is when you go back to your boys. To
Саме
the
легке,
front
то
line.
напевно, коли ти їдеш до хлопців на фронт.
In this situation, it's not really you don't really have a chance to think what's easy and what's hard.
Ну, тобто тобі
Well,
треба
you're strong, you're free, and you're independent, right? Чи шкодуєте, що пішли на фронт?
Ані рано. Я шкодую, що мене жінка не відпускає.
Була така можливість.
Не беруть. Не беруть.
Якщо знову ж таки повернуться в минуле, то все ж таки знаючи, що трапилося з вами, ти все одно пішов.
Так.
Yeah. So the answer is yes. You know, nodding the head, yeah, training is always yes.
Я в частині, я хочу назад